G'day guys, Matt here from HAL Heavy Duty. We're a real live machine shop located up in central Queensland, Australia, and we just hit 10,000 subscribers at the time of this video. So I just want to have a huge shout out and thanks to all you guys who have liked these videos, who comment on them, who have shared them. Man, I'm so grateful. It's been a bit of a surreal experience because I started this channel simply because I was filming. It's actually the second half of this video today is dedicated to the bar that started it all, the boring bar that I use the most called Kong. It's a little KM63 bar that is just so much fun to use. It's got a CNMG tip on it, really hardy little dude that I use in the big lathe here for all the heavy roughing. And it's just, so I find it so mesmerizing to watch as it plows out steel. I caught it on camera one day, made a little short, and it didn't go viral. It got like 10,000 views, but when you haven't done much on social media, you're like, oh my God, that's awesome. And so I just started creating little short videos and then gave a little tour of the shop and then caught our core drill on camera, and it sort of spiraled out from there. It seemed like a good idea at the time, and I'm really glad that I did. I've tried this whole channel to keep it as authentic and real as possible because we are a real live machine shop. We're working 6 days a week at the moment on our mega drill project. I'll show you a little video of the auger that just turned up. So this drill rig that we are building will do a 3-meter hole, 250 meters deep from the back of a truck. It blows the mind when you see the components come together, and that's what's going to be happening in the future videos. In a second, I'm going to take you for a little tour of the shop for those of you that are new or recent to the channel, just so you can see kind of what we've got going on in here, and also some of the upcoming jobs and things in the pipeline that are going to be future videos. If you're thinking, oh, should I join this channel or not? I try to bring you a video a week, sometimes every 2 weeks, just depending on how busy we are, but I'm really committed to keeping the good content coming because it also gives me a record of what we've been up to here. I think we've just done our 20th video and it feels like I started this yesterday. So, like for example, right now we have in the big CNC, we call this one Hal, the littler one is Gene. They're actually named after my grandparents who started this whole company. My grandfather Hal was a driller. He started drilling in the 1950s. And he retired at age about 60 to become a machinist, which he did until he was 87 years old. So the man had 2 careers and was just the most remarkable guy. Most people are ready to give up at 60. He started a whole new career, so it's really inspiring for me anyway. These, we have got to make 60 of them. I've just done the 35th one. Probably in another 10, I'm going to do an entire start to finish of making one of these because they're pretty crazy. It's a custom tool joint thread on one end and a buttress thread on the other. That chuck weighs 186 or 189 kilos, and there's actually 2 of them. So when this thing is spinning, we're looking at more than half a ton of steel going around. And because I've got to do so many of these, some of the comments in the videos have been, man, you're doing some heavy cuts. For a CNMG tip, a 5mm cut's not really a heavy cut. They can go up to 8-9mm, usually no worries. It's funny, I was watching some of David Wilkes, the OG of trepanning, in his videos. He's like, the CNMG tip is his least favorite. Man, it is my favorite. And we agree to disagree on that one. But I love them because they're nearly indestructible. Like you can break one of those inserts and it'll keep cutting. We've done it, and they're extremely hardy. So I've, I think, gone through 3 inserts in 35 tool joints. Awesome bit of gear. So we're making a whole bunch of these. I'll show you some of the completed ones, and we've got more and more stuff coming, like this huge auger that just turned up. I've got to build a drive sub for it that is going to weigh about 800 kilos. So the stuff is fairly well off the charts. Now, let's take a little tour before we get into the boring bar that started it all, and the insane upgrade this little guy just got. So in the shop, we've got two CNCs. The big Alpha, which is a 1760 with a 6-inch bore, this one's used for all the really big stuff, like all the tool joints are going into it. It's got dual chucks, so we can hang rods out the back of it. We've then got our 1560. This was actually the first Colchester that we bought second hand. That's where we got the Kraken drill, the 110mm shop-made monster from. And this little lathe is an absolute winner. Both of them run quick change tool posts, which we like for the kind of work we do. This just gives you a bit of the scale of the size of this. Now there's heaps of bigger stuff out there, but for a CNC, when this thing first rocked up, I was terrified of it. Now I'm pretty used to it, but that's a 500mm chuck holding onto a 320mm billet that we've got to do 60 of them. So yeah, there's a lot of material coming out. This swarf gets emptied out about currently 2 to 3 times a day. And here we've got the big bar set up for Hal. This is recent. So this is mounted into a cross slide tool holder that we custom built in the shop. You've got the Kraken, which is a 110mm shop made drill. We didn't make it, it came with Gene. It'll drill a 110mm hole up to 1/2 meter deep. Then we go in with the Beast for heavy roughing. So that's a 95mm bar and weighs about 40 kilos. Full through coolant plumbed into it. It's got a KM63 head stuck onto it. And just for heavy roughing, 5 to 6mm cuts. And with a CNMG tip, we can just blast metal out with that. And to do all the intricate work, an 85mm bar we call the Hydra. And you can just swap it over. You can use a threading tool. You can use anything you want in that one. And it is a really versatile little tool set. So this pretty much enables us to do anything up to just under 1 meter long from solid billet in the shop. So that maxes out the Alpha. That's a recent tool set and I'm really happy with it. It's a pallet of these. Finished, they weigh about 50 kilos a piece. The original billet's probably closer to 80, I would guess. These have got 2 threads on them. A buttress thread that's custom, and then the actual connection thread itself. They measure, finished, 318mm in diameter, so about 1 foot, and they're 1.5 feet long. So these are going to be some pretty bloody big drill rods, but you'll see why when you see the mega drill. So behind me here is our Spanish megabore lathe. It's a big green machine that we call the Hulk. That name actually came from my neighbor, Paulie. I was sitting there talking to him, having a beer one afternoon, said, mate, we just bought this 11-ton monster. I've got no idea what to call it. So it's a huge green thing. I'm thinking like Gustav the crocodile, like the one that ate all those people in the Nile. He's looked at me, he's like, man, the Hulk. I was like, ah, genius. Anyway, that's where the name came from. You'll notice that I like to name a lot of the stuff in the shop, and it's just because I'm a kid of the 80s. I grew up with He-Man and Skeletor and freaking King Kong. That was the first thing that ever scared me as a little kid, was King Kong ride at Universal Studios. Terrified the hell out of me. And I guess I try to make work as fun as possible for myself and all the guys here in the shop, and it just adds a little bit of fun when it's like, well, what the hell are we going to call it? So we've got Godzilla the Mill, we've got Hulk the Mega Ball, we've got all the different weird name bars, but I just do it to have some fun. This thing is such a useful bit of gear. You'll see here it's about 6 feet tall, 11 tons, and I mean, just working on it, you feel like the Grim Reaper. Like that's the verniers that you actually need to use half the time for this big boy. And it for drilling, like the spindle is the big thing that counts. The foot through the machine allows us to put rods and all sorts of big stuff in there, and it's just so useful. So I'll show you the billet that's going in a future video, where we've got to drill it all the way through and then bore it out with a bar that is being constructed at the moment. I'll show you. So you're looking at 1.2 meters, over 1 foot wide, and that weighs a ton. I'm going to finish it in the CNC in an upcoming video, but we are going to be drilling and boring it out in the Hulk here. The reason why I'm drilling it and not trepanning it is I don't have a trepanning tool long enough yet, although we're definitely going to build one. For those of you who are always wondering, sometimes I can't trepan things out, like core them out, so we have to drill them, because often in drilling connections, one side is different to the other as far as the diameter goes, sometimes significantly. But in this case, we just don't have a trepanning tool big enough. So speaking of trepanning or core drilling, this is our shop-made trepanning bit. It's a 7-inch trepanning tool, and it'll allow us to core out a billet that's 600 long. So you'll notice in the last video we did that billet was 635, we just couldn't get in, and it would have been too big on one end anyway. So sometimes we are a little bit limited, but this tool is one of our favorite to run, and we are going to build a longer one in the future. But yeah, long live David Wilkes, the OG of trepanning. You'll see the full build of this in a future video, but this is the largest bar in the shop as of now. It's Hulk dedicated, so it's not going to go into the CNC. It's got a KM80 head on it. I love these things with the CNMG tip because, again, as I said before, they're just so hardy, and it's very easy to put through coolant in them. That is just on 1 meter long, I think, fully completed, 120 mil diameter, weighs about 70 kilos, 150 pounds. It's a monster, and I cannot wait to run it. So yes, you'll see that in a future video. Being finished as we speak. We also have an entire section of the shop dedicated to manual repair, because the amount of stuff that drillers break, these two lathes are running pretty much non-stop. Hydraulics, pins, rethreading subs, everything you can imagine goes into these two. It's very enjoyable and therapeutic to get to work on them. I spend most of my time on the CNC just because I guess I'm the computer nerd in here, but it is a lot of fun to work on these two lathes. And these are just some of the repair jobs that are going to be going in just today. It's so cute. We have our two most dedicated employees, Murray and Penny. Old Murray is the sweetest dog you've ever seen in your life. He actually grew up with my nephew who named him, and this guy just loves everybody. Old Penny here is a little bit more on the nippy side. We've had, I think, in the 60-year history of the company, probably, I don't know, 25 dogs, and often they get sent to us where the prison or the police find them too difficult to deal with, and for some reason hanging around here they tend to settle down. So they are our two shed dogs, often rescue dogs. Penny was, but old Murray is just the sweetest, most lazy, food-driven boy you've ever met in your whole life. This is the boring bar setup, the dedicated tooling for making all of these tool joints, because I've got to do, I think at this stage, 3 sets of them. That's 180 of these suckers here. I've got to do 180 of those in the next 4 months. So the tool set is dedicated. Now, these guys here, you've got for doing your buttress style threads, and we had to custom build this because nothing long enough existed, at least not where we were purchasing them from. Maybe there's other suppliers. KM63 head here for top-notch threading. That works brilliantly, 0 vibration in that. We use this for the buttress style threads. It's got shop-made through coolant, so thank you guys for all the suggestions on how to do that. Just some hydraulic line that's welded and plumbed at the back there. Works really well. That bar, rigid as, and then an internal grooving head as well. So those 3 get used on every single tool joint that gets created. They do all the finer work. Now for the roughing, Kong has now reached his final form. I want to show you what actually happened. So the original bar was this here. That was the original Kong bar, what you can see. But when this was built, I suspect, I didn't build it, it was here when I took over the shop, is they really had only designed this for probably 3 times diameter. So it was hanging out about 200 mil, old Kong, but the depth of these requires me to go 265. So what we had here was this section made it a pretty weak bar hung out. Now you'll see in the upcoming video, the upcoming footage, that it actually held up pretty well, but that is where it lacked rigidity and you'd get some serious deflection. So after some of these billets are really nasty on the inside, like they're just not fully round. And as I was going through them, about halfway we found some that sucked. And the decision was made, because this thing started squealing and I think it actually fatigued it, we decided to upgrade it. It's really ghetto, but it bloody works. Is we put a 75 by 25 tombstone right up the back of it, stitched on by the Boilermakers, and then we just ran a through coolant line right onto the tip. When we're using these in just normal everyday machining, not building giant tool joints, we go in first with a 78mm U-drill, which creates the hole just big enough. It was for Battle Kong to fit in, but now that ain't gonna happen. So we've rebuilt Kong. We haven't welded his head on yet. As you can see here, that has got full through coolant now, and on the rebuild, we've left all the meat there, so it's actually a really, really rigid bar. Very happy with this. I've been wanting to do it for a while. Result is, we have the awesome foursome, which are building all the tool joints, and the original Kong will live on, reborn as a much, much, much better designed bar that'll retain all its rigidity. Anyway, that's a lot more talking than normal. Let's go and stick these two in. The original Kong you'll see, and then Battle Kong, you can see the difference. Let's dial it up, crank it up, and then we'll send him all the way. You can see here the fact that it's hanging out now 275 mil, there's deflection in the bar and we just can't do heavy cuts. And these billets, you can see right there, they're eccentric and it's a horrible cutting condition. This was the cut that did it. I actually caught it on camera. That is mental as far as just how out of center this billet was. And Kong never performed the same after this, but if I do a lighter cut, it bounces around. Sometimes doing a heavier cut's actually better, but Kong just couldn't do it. It broke old Kong's arm. So hence why, off to the boiler shop, tombstone, through coolant, and yeah, Bob's your uncle. And this new one, you watch. So that first pass, we slowed it down. I added an extra pass in, which I couldn't do with the old Kong because the lack of rigidity meant it would just bend so much. Whereas now that this has got that 25 by 75 tombstone welded on the back, plus that it's clamped down, I can actually take a lighter cut to start off with without it bending all the time. It just plows through it, as you can see here. And then on the second pass, we can just fire it up and go much harder than before. All right guys, well thanks for tuning in, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell, and I'll see you on the next one.